Hi, guys, and welcome to week 3. I've really enjoyed the past 2 weeks, and especially chat last week and getting to talk to you guys one on one. Chat sessions will be more of a like that direct teaching where I can finally just talk to you guys in real time. If you missed that, you can see the transcript. You can always go back and check out what happened in the chat sessions by clicking on the chat session, and then I think there's a little line there, see chat or see past chat. So then you can see the transcript. Yeah, so I want to use those chat sessions as direct teaching times where we can have kind of that in-class experience more. And we'll talk about that week's reading and yeah, the lesson time, but also more directly just the week's excerpt. So like this week, it'll be like the short 5-page from the Hunger Games. And then we'll talk in reference to the week's topic, like this week is motivation. So we'll have something that we can look at outside and then examine back and forth. And then also answering your questions also about where you can ask me. It can be a Q&A session. But also just don't feel intimidated about it. I'll do a lot of the talking, and it's just a cool time to really get going. And I will provide a lot of the topics to keep the discussion going. So even if you're shy, come on in. Also, I just wanted to remind you guys just not to be stressed out. And this is a class for all levels of writing, from beginners to advanced, but very welcome for beginners. And just the forum exercises, the writing exercises, those are just meant for 10 minutes of free writing about, a topic that I'll be providing. Like this week's is really fun. They always say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, I'm just asking for 500 of them or so, or whatever you get down in 10 minutes. So I provided a bunch of pictures, and these are royalty-free images on the web, so they're all copacetic. And so they're just images, and you'll see them, and you can look through there and find one that kind of speaks to you. And then I want you to start a scene that shares their motivation for why they're there. So you don't just tell me why they're there, but give me their internal thoughts demonstrating, how they came to be here or why they're there. And it can be something that goes in conflict with what might be your first thought looking at the image about why they're there. And you'll see more there. So yeah, those writing forum and those writing exercises are to get your juices pumping and to get you writing, in a not as stressful environment. And, again, even if you aren't as comfortable sharing, I just want you to be doing it at home and doing that. And, the commenting each other is not even meant to be as much of a critique, just as yay, other people writing and other people are reading this and commenting on it. So yes, critique too, but, mainly just we're writing, we're reading each other's writing, and we're getting this going. Yes. Oh, okay, and yes, this week's is a lot of fun. And speaking of this week's topic, motivation, goals, why our characters are doing what they're doing. So we're going to look at this twofold. I'm trying not to wave my hands in front of the camera as much so the light doesn't do that weird thing that it did last week. Okay. So why our characters are doing what they're doing. And this is twofold. One is like the big scale, macro. Why does your character want what they do? What does your character want? And I don't just mean the obvious. I mean, what does your character really want underneath? And this is the part where the author, you get to dig down and find what does your character really want. Sometimes you'll understand that in a way that your character doesn't. And that's where you get it, voice and underneath and that driving want, and you'll be using that to drive their actions in a way that they might not even understand until you bring it out, those realizations and those big hitting moments towards the end of the novel and the climax, when those things start to bear fruition. So that gets into felt and unfelt needs. And so this isn't part of this week's excerpt, but I wanted to share it anyway, just to give you kind of a, another peek into it. I just want to share as many ways to help you get at these concepts. So this is also from The Hunger Games, this week's reading. This book is, I know it's YA, and a lot of you aren't writing in that topic, but this book is amazing for voice. It gets close to the narrator. Katniss's motivations are driving her the entire time, and because it's a life and death situation pretty much the whole time, her motivations are very much pretty clear and driving her. And not only her motivations, but Peeta's motivations are really interesting. Also because Katniss is constantly misunderstanding Peeta's motivations. But what's great is because the way Collins writes, Katniss is misunderstanding Peeta's motivations, but you as the reader pretty much do get his motivations, but you understand why Katniss is misunderstanding them, because that's also part of her character. And that's because she gets voice right, because you get what kind of person and thinker that Katniss is, why she doesn't understand Peeta, and all of that is so spot on, and yes. But anyway, since we're talking about motivation, Peeta is the rare kind of person who understands his motivation, like his felt and unfelt needs, like coalesce. So he understands what he wants, and he can express it out loud, which is very rare. So let me read that part where he is actually able to express it out loud. This is in the middle of the book, right before they get into the games, where they'll have to fight to the death until one victor comes out. He says, "It doesn't matter, Katniss," he says. "I've never been a contender in these games anyway." "That's no way to be thinking," I say, and I is Katniss. "Why not? It's true. My best hope is not to disgrace myself and..." He hesitates. "And what?" I say. "I don't know how to say it exactly, only I want to be able to die as myself. Does that make any sense?" he asks. I shake my head. How could he die as anyone but himself? "I don't want them to change me in there, turn me into some kind of monster that I'm not." I bite my lip, feeling inferior. While I've been ruminating on the availability of trees, Peeta has been struggling with how to maintain his dignity, his identity, his purity of self. "Do you mean you won't kill anyone?" I ask. "No. When the time comes, I'm sure I'll kill just like everybody else. I can't go down without a fight. Only I keep wishing I could think of a way to show the Capitol they don't own me, that I'm more than just a piece in their games," says Peeta. "But you're not," I say. "None of us are. That's how the games work." "Okay, but within that framework, there's still you. There's still me," he insists. "Don't you see?" "A little, only, no offense, but who cares, Peeta?" I say. "I do. I mean, what else am I allowed to care about at this point?" he asks angrily. So you see here that he has this intention and this motivation of staying himself, keeping his identity, and then you see that play out throughout the rest of the games for him, and that's very powerful. That's kind of the core of who Peeta is, that drives everything he does, and Katniss's misunderstanding of that also becomes very, very clear. So anyway, and you'll see a lot more in my in the lecture material about who and what a character wants, and how that sets up your character arc, how it sets up your character, how it sets up all of the things they do, and kind of the logic process, so that in any given situation, you are able to understand what your character's knee-jerk reaction would be. And that's what you need to do to understand who they are and why they would do what they would do. Okay, and then you need to understand their motivation in the small scale. And your reader needs to be able to understand their motivation in the small scale. So this is just understanding your characters moment by moment. Like, for example, in a manuscript I was just reading, or in critiquing, like there's one character who goes on and on about being a special, like a paranormal creature, like a werewolf. And he goes on and on about like his family history and how he came to be a werewolf and a werewolf. And then the main character says, just like goes straight on to like asking, like his next dialogue question is about the mystery that they were trying to solve. And you're like, wait, no, what's going on in your head about all the stuff the other guy just said about being the werewolf? Like, what's going on in your head? What's your motivation? What are you thinking? So a lot of this internal moment by moment motivation is just, what are you thinking? How does your thought react to what just happened? Somebody comes into the room and, slugs the guy on the shoulder, or you do that, or somebody slugs you on the shoulder, and our internal questions are, was that a friendly gesture? Was that an anger? And your internal thoughts and those motivations give us those, moment by moment logic answers. And so that's the micro motivation. So this week is all about giving us those macro and micro motivations that we need, so we're logically following what's going on in your story. So, okay, maybe this has gone on a little while, but I always want to give you these like audio and visual intros into the lesson, in case that's more of how you're a learner. So we have as many ways into getting this material as possible. All right. I look forward to this week's chat. I look forward to kind of seeing what you guys are coming up in response to the images, or there's also just option number 2 if you're working on a work in progress and you want to keep posting that, and we'll see how you guys are responding in regards to motivation of your characters. Oh, also this week I put in a podcast which is just 12 minutes long, but it's amazing. So make sure you listen to that, and they're also talking about motivation. I love the Writing Excuses podcast. That podcast has taught me so much, so I'm just giving you one of theirs to listen to. But all right, rock out. Talk to you guys soon.